PCT Oregon, day 24. Set up camp last night there. You can tell that's where the tent was because it's the driest spot. So it started as a very windy spot, so I had all this to choose from. I figured because of the wind, here was the best around the trees and the logs to kind of block some of it, because I found the wind comes in. The way the new tent is, it's like a bathtub floor, and then it's got the vents all the way around that also push the wall out so the rain goes off the sides. But the problem, I mean, it's good. The problem with that is that the wind comes up and under that really easily. So that's where it gets cold. So I figured low to the ground on that area. So anyway, just windy until I don't know what time this morning. I couldn't tell if it was pine needles hitting my tent from up above or rain. And then when the sun came out, I could tell the tent was wet and it wasn't just condensation. It was rain. So it was getting rained on, which technically, out of all the spots, I kind of picked the worst spot for that, because all those branches drip right onto it. And all these other trees have very limited low branches. So probably any other spot would have been a lot better than there. So the tent is wet, the ground cover is wet on the outside, the outside of both. But then I package them all up and they go in the same bag. So they're bound to get wet all over the place. So I'm hoping today, the weather forecast doesn't look great. It doesn't call for rain. It's like 20% until 11. And then 11, it goes away, but it's cloudy all day. And I think the high is like 60 something, low 60s for like the day, like 65 maybe at most. So I'm hoping the sun breaks through enough that I can get the tent out at a break and the ground cover out and dry them off. Otherwise, it's going to be very interesting tonight. I could push on all the way into Cascade Locks, but I don't have a hotel till Tuesday. I could pay for the extra night if there's an availability. I hate to do that. Also, on top of it, it would be a 25-mile day. So by the time I get there, because I already waited out the rain a little bit, so it's a little bit later. I don't know exactly what time. Yeah, 8:30. It's one of my latest starts, because I was seeing if the rain completely stopped, and it hasn't. It's just a trickle, but it's gonna suck because all the cover, or all the foliage is wet. So if it's close to the trail, I got bare legs. I'm just not packed. I mean, I got a rain jacket and a puffy, but this is supposed to be a summer hike, and this is exactly why it's a good idea not to head into Washington this late in the year, because it's going to be rainy and it's going to be cold, and I'd have to completely resupply differently, and I just don't want to do that. So anyway, I could push on, but it'd be like a 25-something mile day or plus, and I wouldn't be until like 7 or 8, which means check-in, I think I looked up last night because I had signal here, check-in is at 3, so I hate paying for it and not being there at check-in, and you literally waste, I don't know, 5 hours when you're not there, and pay for the whole night. So yeah, so the plan is 17 today. Hopefully the sun comes out. Hopefully it's not too cold. The problem with elevation is I'm pretty much staying at this elevation the whole day today. I mean, relatively up and down, but very little, and then camping right at the edge of this elevation, and then everything tomorrow is straight down, like a big descent. So it's not like I'm going to be down a little bit lower where it could be warmer underneath the clouds. If the clouds are here, they're going to be here all day. I could push down a little bit lower, but then, like I said, you get to the incline, and there's going to be no place to camp because everything's on an incline. And also, I heard there's a ton of poison oak on the incline headed down to Cascade Locks. So I don't want to be making a makeshift camp near some bushes that's not really a campsite in an area that's poison oak, and get poison oak to finish off the trip. So a rainy day and poison oak together would not be good. So I'm going to head off down the trail. All the electronics I'm going to put away, so I probably won't do a lot of filming, especially if it stays this drizzly, unless there's just something epic, but I don't think there's going to be any views, which sucks if there's one last view of Hood at any point. But like I said, it only calls to rain till 11, and then just cloudy, partly cloudy, so I don't know how much that will actually transition, like where exactly it'll be. So hopefully it completely blows off. I don't need it to be hot, but just give me some direct sunlight to be able to warm up. So I'm gonna tie my shoes and get hiking because I am freezing already. Okay, so not a super eventful morning. Turns out I picked the absolute worst spot to camp if it rained, because the first 2 miles after camp was all just like this, overgrowth in the trail. Worse than this. Probably the worst I've seen since coming out of Ashland. And what happens is they all get wet from the rain, or mist, or clouds, or fog, or whatever you want to call it. And then you walk through it, and it rubs on your shirt, your shorts, your legs, and then gravity. And it all drips and runs down, and your socks and shoes just soak it up like a sponge. So probably within less than a quarter mile, not because I'm walking in anything wet, just from all the plants, my socks are completely soaked. And I do have my Ultras, the shoes I have, do have holes in them in the sides. So if you get water in them, like at a river crossing or stream crossing, or decide to keep your shoes on purpose, the water will drain out. Unlike waterproof shoes or boots, or rubber boots, or big hiking boots, once the water gets in, because most of them are designed to be waterproof, you have a hard time drying them. They have a hard time getting water out, and then they have a hard time drying. So that's why I prefer to go with the lighter. Yes, they're more apt to get water in, but they're more apt to drain faster. So anyway, I just got soaked this morning. About 4 miles in, I think it was, there's like this outcropping of all these rocks, kind of like exactly what we're walking up to. And right before I get there, the sun finally breaks through the clouds for the first time in the whole morning, and it's hitting those rocks. I'm like, oh, this is the perfect spot. So, not that I needed a break, but I was just so wet. So, I took the pack off, took the fanny pack off, set it down, laid it in a direction it could kind of dry a little bit with the sun. I sat down on the rock, stretched it out, and the cloud moved over the sun, like immediately. It was freezing cold. Oh, I took my rain jacket off too. Immediately, freezing cold. Wind and all that. I'm like, what the heck, right when I got there? It was about something like this. So anyway, outside of that, nothing else. Same old. It stayed. It was supposed to, weather report said at about 11, it was supposed to blow off. It hasn't completely. Well, it's supposed to go from cloudy to partly cloudy. So I guess just not necessarily in this part. There's still quite a bit. It's not supposed to be super warm. I can't remember exactly what the weather report said for high. But it's not supposed to be super warm. I'm making good time though. It looks like I should get into camp around 4:30, where I wanted to get. It's like the last campsite before the big descent down. The only problem is, someone said in the comments it was one of the windiest campsites in all of Oregon. I get that's relative to where you stayed and what night you stayed on it. And I've had the one on Hood, coming up to Hood, was pretty darn windy, and then last night it was pretty windy until the rain started. But the rain stopped. It's still misty. Everything's a little wet in certain sections. You'll get certain sections that are completely dry. They were just untouched by it last night. I was thinking though, like, it just seems right for Oregon. Like, I hiked this whole thing, and weather's been perfect. Haven't got a drop of anything. How un-Oregon-like. So Oregon can't send me off without one day at least a little drizzly. Hopefully it doesn't have more in store as far as a downpour later today or early tomorrow. Yeah, it's hard to not have my mind focused on tomorrow. Like, I don't want to do, especially with the tent being wet. It's like, to get that out and dry it, I don't know how well it'll dry. If I get into camp at 4:30, it's a windy spot. Maybe I can hang it up and it'll dry. And there is out there little bits of sunshine, so maybe if it's because it's a quote-unquote windy spot, maybe it's exposed. And since I'll get there at 4:30, I'll have plenty of time to dry it out. Not a deal, but my sleeping bag liner is starting to stink. More so. And just the idea of back in the tent again for another night. Plus I got to manage my battery just right with my phone, because I just didn't, I don't know what my total time was at mounted charging the batteries, and there's two. It's on one outlet. I think they're like 4 dots is a full charge on both of them, and I got one of them to 3 and one of them to 2. And the problem is, I do a filming during the day, which takes up a good amount. Checking the locations just because you get bored. Like, how many more miles? And you check too many times. I keep telling myself, just put away. It doesn't change. It's still the same distance walking. Your knowledge of it doesn't affect it. And the problem is, it does affect it if it's shorter, because then you got a pep in your step and you're like, okay, I'm making good miles. You're encouraged. But it also affects it equally negative if, oh my gosh, I felt like I went 2 miles and I didn't even go a quarter or something like that, and then you're down and out about it. So really just not looking would be best, but I don't know, my mind gets bored and gotta look. That's why it's nice to have service, because then get a text from the wife or a text from my dad or whatever, and it's like, oh, okay, and it gives me something to, when the trail's just like this, flat and straight and whatever, I can respond back, and it's kind of a back and forth and gives me something to do. So I did skirt, was it Wadham Lake? Wadham Lake? Something like that. Typical PCT fashion. Like, there's no reason to go around this lake. And it goes to it and then circles the whole freaking thing, almost to make a complete loop. Now the elevation, so it makes the difference. You gain elevation as you're going around, so it would have been a crazy elevation to go straight, but wouldn't it be better to do a little crazy elevation for a mile instead of this big circle for 4 miles? So sometimes you gotta wonder about this trail. I think about 5 to 6 more miles to the campsite. I thought about stopping at the lake for like lunch. I've still got a quarter of a bag of wavy lays to finish off. I had a Mountain Dew I carried out of Mount Hood. How fitting. That I was gonna drink the first night out. Like, no, I'll save it to the long day, that 20-mile day. And so I finished that 20-mile day yesterday, and I was like, well, maybe I should split it, because if I drink it tonight, then I won't have anything. And tomorrow is going to be the harder one, because the town is only 8 miles away, and tonight's going to be the hard night. So split it. Well, I drank half, like in the first go. Like, oh my gosh, that's so freaking good. And then didn't fall asleep till late like I've been doing. So just kept hitting it a couple more times, and then I was like, finish it. So last night it was amazing. Now I'm like, what the heck? Couldn't have left half. So anyway, it looks like I could have some downtime at the camp, and it's cold everywhere here. If it's going to be cold at the camp, I might as well try to dry out the tent as quickly as possible, or at least shake it out. See if I can get in a windy spot. I can always throw my puffy on for a little bit, and if it gets too cold, set up camp whatever time. I'm not going to go to sleep right away at 4:30, 5 o'clock or whatever. Probably wouldn't fall asleep till midnight, but the trick will be using my battery power wise. I never finished that. So I got 1 to 3 and 1 to 2. Well, then I already used, just in the last 2 days, the 2 one is done. Because the phone I have has a really long battery life, but I think it sucks, because of that, it sucks a ton more juice out of the batteries than I'm used to. And I have 2 big ones. And most of the time it's worked. It's just these, when I was doing the 20 days, it's when I do the slower days or smaller days. When I did the smaller days and I had other hikers around me, you hang out with them, you're not on your phone. When I had CJ here, when I had my dad here, when I do smaller days, it's just me. Like, what am I gonna, you're not entertained by anything. You're bound to be using more battery, so I kind of have to be. I don't mind sliding into Cascade Locks tomorrow with almost no battery. I just don't like the thought of sliding in there at noon and then not getting to check in till 3. And then what if there's some issue with check-in and I've got all the information on my phone and it's dead? Or what, between noon and 3, get something to eat, but it'd be nice to be able to tell everyone I'm here and all that stuff. So anyway, that's the plan for the rest of the day. Try to use my battery pack wise tonight. I get the tent dried out as best I can. Hopefully the sun comes up in some fashion. And finish off my chips. And I saved my last mountain house for tonight. And I'm gonna find the hiker box tomorrow in Cascade Locks because I got Snickers bars at a Milky Way, stuff like that just right now don't sound appealing. I've got some fuel left in my fuel canister I won't need after tonight. Drop that off. Tuna packets. Tuna doesn't sound good anymore. So I have a few odds and ends to drop in the hiker box. And then at the hotel I'll go through my pack and clean it up and see if there's anything else I'm not going to need anymore. And get rid of that if that's the case. And come Thursday, going over the Bridge of the Gods, just be as light as possible. So anyway, I should probably not use more battery. I don't know if I'll film more at camp tonight, just depend on battery. If there's a view, probably just pictures. And yeah, okie doke. Okay, so I made it to the campsite. It's right the last spot before you drop off and go head down. Slight dilemma though. I did get my tent out and my ground cover out and hung them up to dry in what little sun there is. Of course right now it looks like there's a ton, but it's few and far between and it's not very warm. And I checked the weather report and it's at the peak of the day right now. It's only supposed to get colder. And this is the spot that's supposed to get super windy. So my ground cover dried really good. It's kind of a darker color and thicker material. It dried really fast. The tent not so much. It's still hanging. I'll show you when I get over here. It's still hanging. I mean, it's usable. But it's cold up here. I got my puffy jacket on. And technically, if I can set my tent up, which I could, and just be a little damp, I can get inside my sleeping bag and be fine and warm. But it's like 3:45, so it's like super early. I was looking at the map. There's no listed campsites the rest of the way down, but there's a waterfall. Oh, I can't remember what it is. Like 2 miles up from Cascade Locks. Dry Falls maybe, something like that. And on one of the gut comments it says if you go up to the top of the waterfall or to the waterfall, there's like 2 or 3 campsites. At least there'd be no wind down there, and it would take me, I think it's 6 miles. So it would take me about, I don't know, 2.5 something hours, so it'd be closer to 6 or 6:30. And I'd only have 2 miles into town in the morning. I need to call the hotel because their website says check-in is at 3, but the email I got, the confirmation today, said noon. So if it's at noon and I walk into town at 9, I only have to wait, a few hours and I can get in. But if I walk into town at 9 and it's at 3, now granted tomorrow's supposed to be way warm. Like the high today in Cascade Locks I think was 60 something, 68 or something like that, and the high tomorrow's like 89, so it'll be warmer sooner. but I don't really have anywhere to go in town there, and I think most of the restaurants aren't dine-in situations. I mean, I'm not positive, but the one I was looking at is more of like a walk up, and then you gotta have some place to eat it. Well, if it's freezing cold outside, do I want to be walking around? Now, granted, once it's 10 or 11, sun will be out, it'll probably be warm, so I'm really seriously considering just here, I'll show you. There's the tent drying out, and the bag fell down, and I had the ground cloth over there, and it dried super fast. I put it away. It was pretty much dry, but the tent's still a little damp. So I was thinking about, see, the sun keeps coming up every little bit, breaks through the clouds, but when I looked at the weather, it's only dropping in temperature, and that means even colder up here, and that means that's why all these are built. Someone even put down some grass for bedding or whatever, but there's another one there too, so you know it gets windy up here to kind of block out the wind from coming up and over. There's an okay view of the river over there. It's just through a burn, so it's all through the trees. You can't really get a good picture, but you can see the dam, the Columbia going down. So really close. You can just hear a train. I don't know if I was filming in the train, but you can hear the trains down in Cascade Logs from up here. So we're really close. It's just the mileage of the switchbacks to head down. So I ate the rest of my chips. Had cheese stick. I'm good on water. I wish I had some more Mountain Dew. That's the other possibility. I could go all the way into town if I felt up to it. Get there around 7:30 or 8. There is a place, I think, where hikers can camp, like a campground. There's like a $3 fee, or maybe they upped it or whatever, and I'd be right in town. I could technically go to the store beforehand and have some, or shoot, not the store, I go to one of the places to eat before and have some actual food tonight, even though I'd be in the damp tent and have damp shoes. So that's a possibility too. So I don't know. I really wanted to stay here because I'm tired. But 3:30, and I would just be laying there, and I'd just be using battery on my phone. Wouldn't be able to sleep. And I think it's going to get windy tonight, and it'd already be a little damp because of the tent. Or I think if I go down to the falls, I might get some dew on the tent at night. But it won't be, I don't think it'll be as windy because the mountain's going to be blocking it, I would assume. I don't know what those spots look like. The good thing about that too is if I go down to them and they're full, it's only 2 more miles to town, and I can figure out that campground area. So I'm leaning more towards not staying here tonight. Give this about 15 more minutes, see how it feels. Throw it back in the bag. If it's a little damp, I mean, it's not wet on the inside, it's just a little damp on the inside from condensation. It's just mainly the outside and the bottom. So it's still very much usable, and the breeze is probably helping a little. I think that's what I'm going to do, is at least head down. I don't really want to because of my legs, like they're like ready, but it's just so early. And it's even less to do tomorrow, which that's exciting. Especially if I get all the way, then technically I'm done. And technically I could have breakfast 3 times in Cascade Locks before getting picked up. Which that's not bad because there's a couple different spots that might be worth looking into. We'll be able to try them all. So, anyway, I guess we'll see. We'll give it another few minutes and we'll see. Head down the trail and see what that other spot looks like, or if anything else pops up between here and there. The other thing I want to be careful of is poison oak. I saw in the comments that there's after a certain water chance or stream or something, that the poison oak is pretty thick on both sides of the trail. So I don't want to be settling for a campsite that's too close to poison oak that I might not see or be aware of. I'd rather go all the way into town if that's the case. So we'll see how it looks. If it's too overgrown at the falls, then just foliage in general, then I might just go all the way. It's so far today. Turns out it's supposed to be a 17 into a 25, but it's cold. I think it'll be too windy up here. I've hemmed and hawed enough. Give it a minute and I'll head out. She tried to escape me all day. The clouds did. There's my last look at Hood. I think I missed a killer view earlier in the clouds. I remember it from a previous video. There's the river. Headed. Well, that's a lot of switchbacks in the future. Just got passed on trail by a guy that I saw yesterday on the side of the trail making dinner, and then he must have passed me after I got in my tent last night, and then this morning when I got up I passed his tent. Only person I've seen all day. And just as I started the downhill, I think it was on like the third switchback, he came running down behind me, and I don't know if that's like his normal downhill thing, just run. He's got a trekking pole in each hand, but he's just booking it. I know a lot of the trail runners have smaller trekking poles and they do the same, so I don't know if that's his norm or he's hoping to get in town by a certain time. I did look just for fun at the hours of the drive-in place that I was looking at. They closed at 5, I believe, so it's a little after 4 now. I'm not making that for sure. The ale house, which is supposed to be really hiker friendly, is open till 8. So if the timing's right and I go all the way, they do have pizza there, and that might be the only place in town that has pizza, so that might be something. I gotta do my research on, I think it's Marina Park Campground. It's on Gut Hooks, but one of the comments said the prices have changed and some other stuff has changed, so I'm gonna try to look them up online and see. Cost of camping there, it says it's close to the railroad tracks, but it's a nice view of the bridge and the river, which is not important to me. It's just not super windy like up on top. And if I just had a warm pizza, well, shoot, I can deal with a damp tent. So I don't know if that's really gonna happen. I might just settle for a spot here. Oh, that guy did say that he heard about the poison oak down here too. So it freaks me out. I was a little worried in Ashland because it's known for having poison oak there, and I've had my dad point it out to me like 1,000 times, and then when I try to point it back, like, okay, that's it. Nope. Okay, that. Nope. So I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what I'm seeing. And I know you're looking for leaves of 3. I know you're looking for sometimes red dots or whatever and some shininess to it, but I feel like I see that all the time. So, in elevations where there isn't any. So, it freaks me out to not be able to identify it in some ways, and in other ways, if I could identify it and I looked down and it was all over my leg, would I freak out more knowing that for sure that's what it was? Or at least there's a little bit of ignorance is bliss. But I can't exactly avoid every single plant, especially if everyone's saying how bad it is. How bad is it really? If they're seeing it and identifying it and saying it's bad, do they think they got it? Do they think it's avoidable if you're paying attention? So I don't know. And I only have shorts. I didn't bring my zip-off pants because they really didn't fit, and I loaned them to my dad, and they worked well for him in the cold mornings on the hike. So I just have shorts, so I don't know. I don't know how much I can really, be aware, trying to touch plants, but you're in nature, and there's plants everywhere. Like, I don't know how doable that is, so be as careful as I can, I guess. And if I get to a spot or I go all the way into town, I guess that's another reason to go all the way into town. If I get to that campground, maybe they got running water. Because I would really like to at least rinse off my feet and socks because they are were soaked, and now they just feel all cushy and muddy, and my shoes are pretty muddy. They're just wet looking. So it'd be nice to at least rinse that out. Maybe if it's a campground, it might have a spigot somewhere. I didn't read anything about a spigot, but it might. So, another reason to go all the way, which is insane. Another 25-mile day when I thought the 20s were behind me yesterday, but yeah. Okie doke. Put it away and do a little research. Seems like I have good signal, so I would assume I'm gonna have good signal the whole rest of the way, which that's nice. Whether I stop or go on. Able to inform everyone of the plan. Yeah. Look. Okay, folks, I think I may have found my spot. Can't say it's gonna be less windy, but the downhill is killing me. It's sunny right now. If I set up my tent now, lots of sun left. Possibly a good sunset. I see any poison oak around, which I did see a lot. Ooh. Dad'll have to tell me. Yay? Nay? No, because it's got the raspberry thorns. I don't know. I think if I'm up here, better than the wind. It'll be super windy down here. Quite the view of the old Columbia. I feel like Cascade Locks is further down. Oh yeah, you can barely make out. We can't at all on here. Yeah. Finger. Whoa. Bridge of the Gods is right. Whoa. It's right there. Okay. I don't know what the mileage is right here. It's windy. But it's all the downhill I can do on top of all the rest. I think it's actually good because that 8 miles of downhill would have been killer in the morning. And I at least cut 3, maybe 4 off of it. Yeah, 4 about. So I'm gonna set up tent here. I think service is good. This will do. Sorry for the wind, but there she is, all set up. Opened everything out, airing it out. It's like the perfect name. It's gonna be windy tonight. You probably can't hear me, but it's like the perfect spot. Those clouds cooperate. I'm still gonna have sunshine for a little while. Oh, drying the first shoe out. Figure I haven't done this yet on camera. It's not pleasant. Actually, not as dusty so far today because of the rain or mist or whatever from this morning. Everything's more muddy. But I don't know if you can see. Dirt on the leg. Oh, that's mild. Most days it's just caked. Well, there you go. Oh yeah, there it is. And this one felt like when I was going downhill, I might have ripped the pinky toe off. I was jamming, all the downhill was jamming up against the end. And already my pinky toe like bends in just naturally. So finding shoes, they all have to be extra wide because it smashes it. Actually, not too bad. I did wash it down a little yesterday. In comparison to most days. End of the toe cracked. It's still there. It's probably gonna come off. They're all pruny from being wet all day, which is not good. So anyway, I'll take the other one off. Dry them out in the sun and the wind. I think the tent's drying out well. I got my sleeping, what do you call it, liner, sleeping bag liner out, airing out a little bit. It's gonna be nice, let everything kind of air out. Make my last mountain house. I think it's like a mashed potato, chicken and mashed potato and gravy or something. So that sounds super good. I've decided, my sister-in-law Heidi was saying that you gotta try biscuits and gravy. So I think when I get home, I've never seen it before in stores. I'm gonna have to look it up on Amazon or something and order it just to try it. Mountain House are surprisingly good, but I'm also surprised by how often they do not sound good to me. Like the idea of cooking them at the end of the day. Every time I have cooked one, and then when I eat it, I'm like, oh, that's so good. But at the end of the day, I don't know, the idea of it doesn't sound great. But when I taste it, it's always good. So I don't know what that's about. I think I talked about that before. The hunger out here is so weird. It changes and ebbs and flows, and what you crave and what you don't, or if you're hungry and if you're not, or also how much like you're burning through calories. This might be a little TMI, but I feel like you're not going to the bathroom as much out here. I feel like you're burning up so many calories each day. You're using a lot more of what food you eat versus, real world and lazy and not doing anything. You're not burning through as much as you eat, and so there's a lot more waste. Maybe I'm just imagining that, but it certainly feels like that. I'm sure you all wanted to know that, but it's nice. It means less time having to dig a hole out here, and more time to be able to wait till you have an actual decent bathroom. So anyway, I'm gonna air out the feet, do a little wipe down so we have a nice wind here, if you can even hear me. And yeah, I might film one more thing tonight, but not if it's windy. Maybe in the tent. We'll see. Okay. So I apologize for the wind if it's still windy, but this is just the perfect last campsite spot on trail. Like, it's crazy to me. The very last day, find this perfect spot. I'm able to lay everything out in the sun, dry out in the sun. First time I've ever been able to do that in the whole trip. Socks out in the sun, shoes in the sun, tent was wet, it's in the sun, liner in the sun, bag in the sun. It's like perfect. Windy, not too hot. Like, at the start, it's a pretty crappy, rainy, wet, whatever day. I just found the perfect spot, and I find that's happened throughout the trip. Like, I'll go farther and be like, is this a mistake to go further? I probably shouldn't go further. I should have taken the last spot. Why did I do this? And then always, like, the perfect scenario comes to pass. Or I push further. I was like, I shouldn't push further. I shouldn't. But then, for whatever reason, the perfect scenario. I feel like there's situations like at Timberline Lodge where I was going to push the day before or push this day. And then I got in and was able to do breakfast. And because I did breakfast then, I didn't need to do breakfast the next day, which means I could get out early. And just situations. Just every situation presented itself a new opportunity that ended up being for the better. So it's like I was always in the right place at the right time for the right thing to happen. Even when I doubted it and second guessed it, it's like the perfect thing. And it's like up there on top of the ridge was cold and my tent wasn't drying and it was 3 o'clock and yeah, so I started to head down and be like, well, I could go all the way in. So I'm researching places to eat and ooh, that sounds good, and I researched the place to camp and it looks like it's closed to walk up campers as far as, PCT hikers is crossed out in their list of people they accept now because of COVID. So it's like, oh, that's not going to work. And where the heck am I going to stay if I get down there? So I'm starting to freak out as I'm coming down the hill and then worried about poison oak. And then my feet are starting to bother me. It's been a long day and a lot of downhill. And then boom, this spot. It's like just when everything is not right. And I feel like that's such a metaphor for this whole year for us. It's like I know everyone's had a tough time. It's been a crazy year in a lot of respects for a lot of people in a lot of different ways and just our world as a whole. But in our situation, like, we did so much and sold so much to change so much, and then it felt like all that went to crap. But just like it felt like for a lot of people that life went to crap. But I feel like we've been open and fluid to whatever situation we were put in and drawn to and whatever, and it didn't let fear stop us anymore. Like, oh, you got to rush back out and get a job, or you got to rush and do this, or you got anything you said that you got to do. You have to do it this way. And I feel like this whole year we've gone against the way we've had to do it. We've also been insanely blessed by having such a supportive family and my parents and my sister and brother-in-law for opening up their homes to us and letting us, be there while we figure all this out and the timing of it. But they've been wonderful about that, and everyone's been so supportive of that. And because of that, it provides us opportunities and gives us the ability to live bold and be bold and go out and do these things and not live in fear. And I feel like that's a good starting point for the next chapter in our life up in Washington, and a good starting point for me as far as, career and what I'm looking for is like, don't settle anymore, be bold and want the things you want and go after them and not good enough. And also just as I get close to finishing this, like being excited about how much I'm able to do and my capabilities. And now it's like proven to myself, like, look, you did this whole thing and that's impressive and that's worthy and that's a good thing. And that's something to be proud of. And that's something to, to empower you to do something else, to be like, hey, I'm capable of whatever. Not that I didn't have faith in myself, but just doing something like this is just different than anything I've ever done. So it's a whole new faith. So anyway, I just feel like I hope you can hear me over the wind. I feel like that's the important life lesson of the whole thing, is just to try to be satisfied in the situation you're in and then make the best of whatever that situation is, and that you're at the right place at the right time no matter what, for the right things to happen. And don't dwell on, is this right or is this wrong, or oh my gosh, it's like, let the experience happen and see all the positives. Well, hello. There's a squirrel on the other side of that tree. I don't know if he'll peek around again. But anyway, see all the positives in things. And not dwell on the negatives, like find the happiness in whatever the situation you're in currently, and not always be seeking out the next or whatever thing. Like today, this is enough. Cascade Locks is right down there, and there's pizza and soda, and it'd be awesome. But right now, this is pretty darn awesome. And remember that'll still be there tomorrow. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue the things you want or go after them. But in the moment you're in, don't let it be all consumed by what you've been pursuing. And I feel like for the PCT, for me, that's been a big thing. It's been all consuming, this dream, this want to, and this fear of not being able to. And a lot of other things maybe were missed or didn't get my full attention because I was so focused on this. And I don't want that to be the case anymore, that I'm so focused on one thing or the other that I'm missing out what's going on right in front of me and how special that is, whatever that scenario is. So even in a ho-hum, stay-at-home, do-nothing day, that's pretty darn special too. So anyway, that's my spiel. Hopefully you can hear it over the wind. I have a few things I want to talk about tomorrow, maybe on the way down the hill, about just my appreciation for everyone that's been so supportive of this whole thing. Because I don't know how much I'm going to film on the last day, or how much I'm going to film on my free days. I kind of just want to turn the camera off and walk across the bridge. It's a big thing for me. So I don't know how much I'll film on that day as well. Maybe it's some lead up to the bridge or whatever, but that'll be it. So tomorrow down the hill into the Cascade Locks might be one of the last couple times I film. So I want to make sure that I thank everyone that's been so supportive of this whole thing. So anyway, I'm going to lay here until it starts to cool off and get in the tent. And yeah, so see you guys in the morning.